I stood on my small rectangle for a long while. I felt the breeze. I imagined the family gathered there over this small plot of land. I imagined my wife bereft, Sierra, our daughter, and her future family. I imagined them gathering there, this plot of land, children, grandchildren, sitting beneath a green canopy on white folding chairs, while another rabbi helps them tear their black ribbons, utter the words, and turn a spade of dirt upon my plain pine casket. They would be sad. They would get back into a dark limousine, loosen their ties, kick off their shoes, journey home to bagels and stories, a flickering candle and Kaddish. They cry and they laugh, and I would be gone. The exercise is a sobering one. It is a strange experience to consider standing upon one's own grave. Of course, many of us do not yet know the location of that small plot on the earth, and yet it takes only a small amount of imagination to picture it. Perhaps you are doing so even now. Tonight, Kol Nidre is supposed to make us feel that very same way. Yom Kippur was designed by the sages as an annual rehearsal of our death. We do not eat, we do not drink, because the dead neither eat nor drink. We wear white to remind us of the white burial shroud a traditional Jew wears into eternity. The Torahs wear white in the Holy Ark, the word for which in Hebrew is aron, the same word for casket. And tonight those 3 Torah scrolls represent the Beit Din, the 3 judges that we will face in the heavenly court above. We begin Kol Nidre tonight, standing before the eternal court. We end Yom Kippur tomorrow with the very same words that are recited when one dies. Adonai hu ha'Elohim, Adonai is God. When the Yom Kippur prayer book asks, who shall live and who shall die? The answer for each of us is me. I will live, and one day I will die. Unlike most people, rabbis do not have the luxury of thinking about these issues only once a year on Yom Kippur, or perhaps for some of you a handful of times over decades of life. This June, I completed my 14th year as your rabbi. It means many wonderful things, but it also means 14 years of seeing death up close. So what have I learned from the years of death that I can share with you on this evening when we are commanded to consider our own deaths in order that we might change our lives? Number 1, the first thing I have learned about death might surprise you, which is there are many worse things than dying. I have held the hands of 100 dying people. It might amaze you to know that not once, not one time has any of them been afraid. There are the rare exceptions, but most people die at the end of a very long life, or if they are young, after a long, debilitating illness. Age and disease have their own rhythm and their own power. They teach us. They carry us along, preparing us and the people we love for death. For most, death comes as a peaceful resolution, a sort of a friend. Most people are ready to die the way that we are all ready to sleep after a very long and terribly exhausting day. We just want to pull the covers up around us and settle in for some peace and quiet. We're not anxious about sleeping. We're not depressed. We're not afraid. The rabbis call death menucha nechona, a perfect sleep. Disease, age, life itself prepares us for death. When it is our time, death can be as natural a thing as life. Here's some good news. It means that if you are afraid of dying, it's not your day. Anxiety is for the living. And when it really is your time to die, you will be at peace. You will be welcomed into God's embrace. Number 2. Most people's thoughts about death are something along the lines of, if life is good, then death must be bad. And I have learned that it is not so. Not that I for one moment would try to make sense of the death of a child or anyone who has not been granted his or her full measure of life. But generally speaking, do we believe that more is always better? Or is there something about death that defines the essence of life itself? So just for a moment, imagine a world without death, without the finality of death. Would we be motivated to aspire to anything at all? Could life be serious or meaningful without mortality? Could life be beautiful? Death, said Wallace Stevens, is the mother of beauty. We recognize the beauty of flowers only because we know someday they will soon wither. Could we love one another as deeply if not for the knowledge that someday we must part? It is the simple fact that we do not have forever that makes our love for each other so profound. And finally, without death, could there be such a thing as morality? To know that we will die means we must stand for something greater than ourselves in life. It is death that makes us human in the best sense of that word. And we contemplate death at Kol Nidre in order to become our best and most human selves. Number 3, I have learned the profound difference between prolonging life and prolonging death. When I'm summoned to the hospital by a family that must decide whether or not to allow some procedure for a loved one's care, amidst the stress and chaos and confusion, I try to ask this simple question: is this going to prolong your loved one's life or prolong your loved one's death? It's loving to prolong life, a chance to live and love and laugh again. It can be cruel to prolong death. If you're wondering how you'll know whether you are prolonging life or prolonging death, I can only tell you this: you'll know. Then you must have the depth of love and courage within your heart to act upon what you know. To truly love someone does sometimes mean letting them go. Number 4, I have learned that Jews don't really know Shiva. I'm not sure when it happened, but Reformed Jews especially have lost touch with what Shiva is really supposed to be. Sitting Shiva is supposed to ease a burden on those who are in mourning. It means that we're supposed to take care of them after the funeral, not that they throw a party and entertain us all. The rabbis knew what they were doing when they mandated 7 days and nights of being taken care of by the community, of staying home, sitting down, taking the time to remember and to pray and to say the Kaddish. When someone you care about becomes a mourner, you should help. You should organize the food, the parking, the chairs, everything needed for the Shiva at their home. And when you arrive at Shiva, do not approach the mourners. You should be close by so that they can summon you if they wish. If they do, don't distract them by avoiding the subject of their loved one's death. Talk about their loved one. Share your memories. They want to remember. They need to remember, to talk, to let it out, and to grieve. I recall a man years ago whose 30-year-old daughter had died in a car accident, who said at the Shiva, as he looked around the room at the people who came to comfort him, he said, "This changes nothing, but it means everything." Showing up matters. For those of you who know that this sermon is for you, let's hold on to the ritual of Shiva. And I promise that Shiva will hold you when you need to be held so badly. Number 5. I've learned that it's important that we be ourselves when confronting others dealing with death. So often I hear from those who we don't know what to say or how to act or what is best when caring for those in mourning. People who are facing death or mourning do not really want or need us to approach them with our sad faces and whispered sympathies. They need us to be there with them in death, who we are with them in life. If you are a hugger, hug them. If you are a joker, then joke. If you are a storyteller, tell stories. If you are a feeder, then feed them. If you are a doer, then do for them. Be who you are and have always been for them. That is what people need and what they want. They are sad enough without your sadness on top. Tell them the funniest story that you know about their loved one. When mourners laugh, it means they are surviving. When it comes to death, laughter is a gift. Number 6. People and families face death exactly the way they face life. It is sometimes terrible, it is sometimes beautiful, but it is almost always true, and it is best not to expect otherwise. Death makes everyone even more of what they already were. If a person was private in life, she will be private when dying. If she was an anxious person in life, she will be even more anxious in death. If he was a wisecracking optimist in life, he will be a wisecracking optimist in death. If your family was tight and loving and supportive in life, your family will be the same when you face death. If your family was dysfunctional and distant and fractured in life, well, it will pull together briefly to make funeral plans and to get through the day. And soon enough, it will fracture again. Through mourning or illness or profound loss, the same bright colors which illuminated us in life are there, coursing through our faces with sadness and grief. Just as we should be ourselves, expect that they will too be themselves at every stage. The 7th thing that I've learned is that anyone who thinks that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line does not understand grief. Grief is not a linear process, with sadness diminishing each day until it clears up like an infection. Grief ebbs and flows and ebbs and flows and ebbs and flows. Sometimes we stand up in it, and other times it pulls us under. It thrashes us, it scares us. The world seems upside down and we cannot breathe. When the wave called grief comes, I have learned it best to float with the pain and the emptiness, to give into it, to be with it, to take your time and then stand when you are able. We lose so much to death. Eventually, we lose all of those people who shared our memories. That incredible trip, the Thai food from that place down the alley, the baby's first steps across the room, that old car we took cross country when we were young. We lose the only mother, the only father we will ever have. We lose so much love to death. And if that love is real and deep, then the grief is real and deep too. Grief is not a race to be won or some ill to be cured. To deny grief its due is to deny the love that we had for those who we have no longer. Do not fight grief when it comes. Float with it. And when you can, you will stand again. Number 8. I have learned time and time again, the rabbi does not write your eulogy after you die. You write it with the pen of your life. Every day, every year, with each passing season, you write your eulogy. Number 9. When my friend's mother died recently, I asked him what he learned from it all. His answer, nobody wants your stuff. We spend so much of our lives working to buy things that amount to less than we expect. I once sat next to a woman on a plane who found out what I did as my profession, and she immediately handed me her card. She owned a nationwide business called Everything But the House. She sells the stuff in people's homes after they die. Their children don't want most of it, and no one that they knew wants it. She told me that the business nets over $120 million a year. We spend our lives acquiring things that we think matter, and mostly they don't. We think buying these things makes our life fuller, more meaningful. I once learned from Rabbi Stephen Leader in Los Angeles. He teaches filling yourself up with things is like trying to eat a picture of food. A group of American tourists visited one of the most famous Eastern European rabbis of the last century, known as the Chofetz Chaim, in his little town of Radun. When they arrived, the rabbi was in his small study with a rickety desk and a few books. And one of the tourists asked incredulously, "Rabbi, where is all of your stuff?" The Chofetz Chaim smiled and said to the tourist, "Where is all yours?" "Well, but we are just passing through," the man answered. "So am I," the rabbi said with a wise nod. Death is a powerful reminder to buy less and do more, to live, to travel, and to give more instead. Number 10. I have learned that the afterlife might be real. Judaism has a lot to say about the afterlife, and much of it is contradictory. Views range from Ezekiel's resurrection vision in the valley of dry bones to the transmigration of souls, which is Judaism's version of reincarnation, to heaven and hell scenarios in the Talmud, to the rationalist and the humanist who say that there is no afterlife at all. It is easy to say that we live on in memory, but the truth is, at some point, there will not be a single person left alive who remembers us. So what can we credibly say about the other side? I have seen many die. What I know is that a body is not a person. It is a vessel. There is so much more to us than our bodies. So where does the soul go? I don't know. But I have heard so many stories, real stories, to dismiss the possibility of an afterlife. My wife's mother died nearly 30 years ago. Every year, and every time that we seek to connect with her, we see a feather. Every time and every year. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, perhaps not. Plenty of you have shared similar tales of signs which you take to be some evidence of the presence of a loved one. Those stories that I have heard and the ones I've experienced bring me great warmth and hope and strength. A dream, a feather, a sign, smell, vision, a song, a soft breeze in a hard moment. These reminders may or may not be a presence, but they are real and they are to be treasured. They are their own afterlife. And I have learned that if there is more, we cannot know it. Number 11. Read the headstones. Kafka once said, "The meaning of life is that it ends." And that is the truth. Death is a great teacher because it informs the living about what really matters. And we are here tonight to think about what really matters. When I walk through cemeteries, I am struck by the uniformity of the inscriptions on headstones. There are a few outstanding funny ones, like I think Rodney Dangerfield says, "There goes the neighborhood." Mel Blanc wrote on his, "That's all, folks." But mostly headstones mention the same few things about people. When you only have 15 characters per line to sum up a person's life, you have to distill that life down to its most essential elements. You want to know what really matters? Walk through the cemetery. Read the headstones. It almost always comes down to a few simple relationships. A loving husband, father, and grandfather. Loving wife, mother, grandmother. Loyal friend. Loving sister, loving brother. That's it. No resume. No net worth. We matter when we love our family and our friends. It sometimes takes death to remind us that life really is that simple. So I leave us tonight with a very simple prayer. Oh God, we stand tonight before our open grave, before an open book, before you. Help us as we imagine our own deaths to make the most of our lives in the new year and today. Shabbat Shalom, Gamar Tov.